The crystal chandelier above the dining table sparkled like 1,000 tiny stars, but I felt like I was sitting in darkness. Around me, Adrian's family laughed and clinked their wine glasses, their designer clothes and expensive jewelry catching the light with every movement. I looked down at my plain navy dress, the nicest thing I owned, and felt my cheeks burn. "Maya, darling," Adrian's mother Patricia called out sweetly. Her voice dripped with false concern. "The waiter needs to know where you'll be sitting." I looked up confused. There was an empty chair beside Adrian. Patricia smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Oh, not there, dear. We've reserved the main table for family members who contribute to the household." She gestured toward a small table in the corner where Adrian's young nephews were already seated with their tablets. "You'll be more comfortable over there with the children." The room went silent. Then someone giggled. Then another. Soon the whole table was laughing. Adrian said nothing. He just looked at his plate. I stood up slowly, my legs shaking, and walked to the children's table. The drive home was worse than the dinner. Adrian gripped the steering wheel tight. His jaw clenched. I stared out the window at the dark streets passing by, trying not to cry. "You embarrassed me tonight," he finally said. I turned to him, shocked. "I embarrassed you. You should have just laughed it off. Now my mother thinks you're sensitive and difficult." He sighed like I was a problem he had to solve. "Why do you always have to make everything so dramatic?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to defend myself. But I was so tired. So tired of being small, of being nothing, of being invisible even in my own marriage. When we got home, Adrian went straight to bed without another word. I sat alone in the dark living room, my phone glowing in my hands. That's when I saw it. An email from 3 days ago that I'd somehow missed. The subject line read, "Maya, we need to talk. Urgent. It's about the company." It was from Tyler, my old business partner. I hadn't thought about the startup in years. Felt like another lifetime, another version of me. Back then I'd been different. Confident, driven, full of dreams. Tyler and I had built something special together. A small AI logistics company that helped warehouses manage inventory more efficiently. We'd worked from coffee shops in his garage, coding late into the night, pitching to investors who barely listened. But we'd believed in it. I'd believed in it. Then I met Adrian. His family was wealthy, established, impressive. They'd seemed so sure of themselves, so certain about how life should be lived. When Adrian proposed after 6 months, his mother had pulled me aside. "A wife shouldn't be distracted by business ventures," she'd said, smiling. "Family comes first." I'd been young and stupid. I'd wanted to belong somewhere. So I'd left the company. I'd left Tyler to run it alone. Now, staring at his email, my hands trembled. Clicked it open. Tyler's message was short, but it hit me like a punch to the stomach. "Maya, I hope you're well. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. Something incredible has happened. Our AI system is exactly what the big logistics companies have been looking for. TechCore Global wants to acquire us. The deal is worth $47 million. I know you signed away your shares when you left, but I need to verify something. Did you transfer them to anyone, or were they just dissolved? Please call me as soon as possible. This is time sensitive." I read it 3 times. $47 million. Our little startup that we'd built with borrowed laptops and instant noodles was worth $47 million. But I'd signed away my shares. I remembered that day clearly now. Adrian had been so insistent. "You don't need them anymore," he'd said. "We're building a life together. Let me handle the paperwork." I trusted him. I stumbled to Adrian's home office and started searching through his file cabinet. My hands shook as I flipped through folders. Business licenses, tax documents, investment portfolios I didn't even know existed. Then I found it. A thick envelope labeled Maya, Startup Shares. Inside was the transfer agreement. But the shares hadn't been dissolved. They'd been transferred to Adrian. My signature was at the bottom, but above it was a clause I didn't remember signing. It said the shares would be held in trust for family assets. Adrian had taken my shares. He'd told me they were worthless, that it was just paperwork to close that chapter of my life. But he'd kept them. And if Tyler's email was right, those shares were worth millions. I heard footsteps behind me. "What are you doing in here?" Adrian stood in the doorway, his face hard. I held up the papers. "You lied to me." He didn't even look ashamed. "It's family money now, Maya. What's yours is ours. That's what marriage means." I pulled out my phone and hit record. Over the next 2 weeks, everything changed. I started quietly. First, I opened a bank account Adrian didn't know about. Then I began freelancing online, doing data analysis work under a fake name. It wasn't much money, maybe $200 a week, but it was mine. I worked late at night after Adrian fell asleep. I worked in coffee shops while he thought I was at the grocery store. Every dollar I earned felt like a tiny piece of freedom. Then I got a message on the freelancing platform from someone named Victoria Sterling. She ran an investment fund that supported women entrepreneurs. She'd seen my work and wanted to talk. We met at a small cafe downtown. Victoria was sharp and direct. She listened to my story without judgment. "I want to build something again," I told her. "But I can't do it under my real name." "Not yet." Victoria smiled. "Then let's create a new identity. A new company. A fresh start." She offered me seed funding. Said yes. I called the company Horizon Solutions. On paper, it was owned by M. Rivers, a business alias I'd created. Nobody knew Maya Torres was behind it. I worked obsessively, building a platform that improved on everything Tyler and I had started years ago. The business grew faster than I'd expected. Within 3 months, I had 5 clients. Within 6 months, 15. I hired freelancers to help with the workload, all through anonymous contracts. But Adrian was getting suspicious. He noticed I was spending more time on my laptop. He started asking questions about where I'd been, who I'd talked to. One night, I came home to find him sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open. "What is Horizon Solutions?" he demanded. My heart stopped. "It's just a freelancing thing. Small jobs here and there. Don't lie to me." His voice was sharp. "I called my mother. She says you need to stop this immediately before you embarrass the family." "Embarrass them? I'm trying to support myself." "You don't need to support yourself. I support you." That's when I realized. He didn't want a wife. He wanted someone he could control. Patricia called me the next morning. "Maya, dear, Adrian told me about your little business venture." She didn't sound concerned. She sounded amused. "I think it's wonderful that you want to keep busy, but running a company, that's a bit ambitious for someone without experience, don't you think?" "I have plenty of experience," I said quietly. "Sweetheart, we both know that startup you were involved in years ago was Tyler's project. You were just helping out." He paused. "Look, I'm going to be direct. This business of yours reflects on our family. If you fail, and you will, it makes Adrian look bad for not controlling his wife. I'm asking you nicely to shut it down." It wasn't a request. It was an order. "I'll think about it," I lied. The moment I hung up, I called my lawyer. Within 2 hours, I had filed new incorporation papers that made me the sole founder and CEO of Horizon Solutions. Nobody could take it from me this time. The final fight happened on a Thursday. Adrian came home from work, angry about something his father had said. He took it out on me, yelling about how I was making him look weak, how I was disrespecting his family. "You're not the woman I married," he shouted. "No," I said calmly. "I'm better." He grabbed my old laptop, the one I'd used to build the business in secret, and threw it against the wall. It shattered into pieces. "You want to leave? Then leave. See how far you get without my family's money and connections." I looked at him for a long moment. This man I'd loved, who I'd given up my dreams for, who had slowly made me feel smaller and smaller until I'd almost disappeared completely. "You're right," I said. "I should leave." Packed one suitcase. I took my important documents, and I walked out. The next morning he woke up to a text from me. "Don't worry. You'll see me again. Just not the way you think. The first 3 months on my own were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment with peeling paint and a radiator that only worked half the time. I lived on instant noodles and coffee. But I was free. Horizon Solutions kept growing. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes 18. I called clients from the laundromat. I coded in the library. I pitched to investors in borrowed conference rooms. Victoria's fund invested more money. Other investors started noticing. Within 6 months, we'd tripled our revenue. Within a year, we'd landed a major contract with a national shipping company. Then I saw the headline. Local logistics firm secures partnership with TechCore Global. Anonymous founder gains significant stake. Nobody knew M. Rivers was me. I'd been careful. I'd used lawyers and shell corporations to keep my name hidden. It was better this way. I could move freely without Adrian's family watching. That's when I saw another headline that made my blood run cold. Torres Industries faces financial crisis. Family empire in jeopardy. Adrian's family company was failing. I spent weeks researching Torres Industries. The company Adrian's grandfather had built was drowning in debt. They'd made bad investments, trusted the wrong partners, spent more than they earned trying to maintain their lavish lifestyle. They were desperate. And desperate companies got sold. My investor group had been quietly looking at acquisition opportunities. Torres Industries appeared on our radar as a potential target, a struggling company with good bones that just needed better management. I sat in Victoria's office, looking at the financial reports. "This is personal for you," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes. Are you sure you want to do this?" I thought about Patricia's cold smile at that dinner. I thought about Adrian throwing my laptop. I thought about all the times they'd made me feel worthless. "I'm sure." I signed the acquisition proposal with my business name, M. Rivers. The due diligence process took months. Torres Industries' finances were even worse than we'd thought. They'd been hiding losses for years, using creative accounting to maintain appearances. Patricia still threw expensive parties. Adrian's father still drove luxury cars. But behind the scenes they were bleeding money. My team put together an offer. It was fair, more than fair actually. We offered to buy 70% of the company, restructure the debt, and keep most of the employees. We weren't trying to destroy them. We were trying to save the company from their own mismanagement. When the board reviewed all the offers, ours was the strongest. The Torres family didn't have a choice. The sale went through on a Friday in October. By Monday morning, I owned the majority stake in Torres Industries. The family didn't know yet. The sale had been handled through our corporate entities. They had no idea who M. Rivers really was. I scheduled a company-wide meeting for Wednesday morning. Subject: Meet your new CEO. I watched from my car across the street as Adrian's family arrived at the company headquarters for an emergency meeting. They looked confused but not worried. Patricia wore a red designer suit. Adrian's father walked with his usual swagger. Through the boardroom windows I could see them talking, laughing. They probably thought this was just another business formality, that whoever bought the company would let them keep running things. My phone buzzed. "Victoria. You ready?" I looked at myself in the rearview mirror. I was wearing a gray suit I'd bought specifically for this moment. My hair was pulled back. I looked professional, powerful, nothing like the woman who'd sat at the children's table. "Ready," I texted back. I got out of the car and walked across the street. The security guard recognized me immediately. "Ms. Rivers," he said, opening the door. "They're waiting for you upstairs." I took the elevator to the top floor. The boardroom fell completely silent when I walked in. Patricia's smile froze on her face. Adrian dropped his coffee. His father's mouth hung open. I set my briefcase on the table and stood at the head of the room. "Good morning," I said calmly. For those who don't know me as M. Rivers, my legal name is Maya Torres. And as of 3 days ago, I owned 70% of this company. Adrian found his voice first. "This is insane. You can't." "I can, and I did. I opened my briefcase and removed the ownership documents. These are public record. You're welcome to verify them with your lawyers. Patricia stood up, her face red. This is some kind of trick. You don't have the money to buy a company. You're right. I didn't have the money 3 years ago when you told me I was worthless. But I do now. I looked directly at her. I built a successful business while you were busy mocking me. And now I'm here to save your family's company from the debt you've created. Adrian's father slammed his hand on the table. We won't allow this. You don't have a choice. The sale is final. The next hour was chaos. Adrian's family shouted questions, made threats, called their lawyers. The lawyers confirmed everything I'd said was true and legal. Finally, Patricia sat down heavily in her chair. What do you want? She asked, her voice small. I want to run this company properly. I want to pay off the debt, restore its reputation, and make it profitable again. I looked around the room. Every employee keeps their job. But the executive positions will be restructured based on merit, not family connections. You can't do this to us, Adrian said quietly. I turned to him. You remember those startup shares I signed over to you? The ones you said were worthless. I pulled out another document. Tyler's company was acquired last year. Those shares were worth $8 million. You took them from me through fraud. His face went pale. I have a recording of you admitting you used them for family assets. I also have the original transfer document where you lied about the terms. Pause. So yes, Adrian, I can do this. The media explosion happened faster than I expected. By that afternoon, the story was everywhere. Woman buys ex-husband's family company after years of humiliation. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing with interview requests. Victoria helped me craft a simple statement. I built a successful business through hard work and determination. Acquiring Torres Industries was a sound business decision. I look forward to restoring the company to profitability while treating all employees with the respect they deserve. The public response was overwhelming. Social media exploded with supportive messages. Women shared their own stories of being underestimated. The hashtag Maya Rivers started trending. Then I got an email that changed everything. It was from Marcus Flynn, CEO of Global Tech Ventures, one of the largest investment firms in the country. Ms. Rivers, I've been following your story with great interest. Your business model is exactly what we've been looking for in a partner. Would you be available for a conversation about a potential collaboration? I stared at the email for a long time. Then I replied, yes, I'm available. Adrian's family tried everything to fight back. They held emergency board meetings, contacted old business associates, even tried to rally other shareholders against me. But the math was simple. I owned 70%. They couldn't outvote me. Patricia called me one evening. Her voice was different now, smaller, almost desperate. Maya, please. Can we talk? Just the two of us. We met at a quiet restaurant downtown. She arrived looking exhausted, her designer armor finally cracking. I know I treated you terribly, she said. I was wrong. Adrian was wrong. We all were. I paused. But this company has been in our family for 3 generations. Surely we can work something out. You're right, I said. The company has history. That's why I'm keeping it. I'm keeping the employees too. The ones who actually do the work. And us. I looked at her steadily. Everyone will be evaluated based on their actual contributions. If you can prove you add value, you'll have a position. But the days of family members collecting paychecks for doing nothing are over. I implemented changes quickly. First, I hired an independent auditor to review every department. The results were shocking. Half the executive positions were occupied by family members or friends who did minimal work. Real decisions were being made by mid-level managers who received no credit. I restructured the entire organization. The talented managers got promoted. The family members who couldn't demonstrate their value were offered generous severance packages or entry-level positions if they wanted to start over and prove themselves. Patricia refused both options. She stormed into my office 3 weeks after the announcement. "I won't be humiliated like this," she declared. "I'm a vice president." "You were a vice president," I corrected. "Your job consisted of attending charity luncheons and approving decorations for company events. That's not a $70,000 salary position." "I have connections. I brought in clients." "Name one client you brought in last year." She couldn't. "I'm offering you a position in community relations. Part-time, appropriate salary. You'd be good at it. Or you can take the severance." She chose severance and left threatening to sue. Adrian took longer to accept reality. He kept his office for weeks, showing up every day even after I'd reassigned his position to someone qualified. He'd sit at his desk, making personal calls and pretending everything was normal. Finally, I had to address it directly. I knocked on his office door. My office now, technically, since I'd given him a smaller space. "Adrian, we need to talk." He looked up from his phone. "I'm busy." "No, you're not. You haven't done actual work here in years." I sat down across from him. "I have the performance reviews. You missed 70% of your meetings last year. Every project you touched went over budget." "That's not true." "I have documentation." I slid a folder across his desk. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to run a business. You can stay if you want to actually work. Junior analyst position. You'd report to Kelly in operations." His face flushed. "Report to Kelly. She's been here 3 years. And she's excellent at her job. You'd learn a lot from her." He stood up. "I'll sue you. I'll take everything." "With what money? And for what?" I stood too. "I bought this company legally. I paid fair market value. And I have recordings of you admitting you stole my shares. Please, Adrian, take me to court. I'd love to play those recordings publicly." He packed his desk that afternoon. The lawsuit came anyway. Adrian claimed I'd manipulated the sale, that I'd used insider knowledge from our marriage to target his family's company specifically. His lawyers filed an emergency motion to freeze my assets and reverse the acquisition. We went to court on a rainy Tuesday. The courtroom was packed with reporters. Adrian's lawyer argued passionately about family rights and corporate espionage. He painted me as a vengeful ex-wife destroying lives out of spite. Then my lawyer stood up and played the recording from 3 years ago. Adrian's voice filled the courtroom. "It's all family money, Maya. What's yours is ours." Next, my lawyer showed the transfer documents where Adrian had taken my shares through fraud. Then the financial records showing Torres Industries was already failing before I made my offer. The judge didn't even need to deliberate. She dismissed the case immediately and ordered Adrian to pay my legal fees. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She ordered an investigation into the original share transfer. 2 weeks later, Adrian was ordered to return the $8 million those shares had been worth. The money went directly into my account. I donated half of it to a fund for women rebuilding their lives after divorce. Marcus Flynn's partnership offer was incredible. Global Tech wanted to invest $100 million in Horizon Solutions and help us expand internationally. In exchange, they'd take a minority stake and provide connections to Fortune 500 companies. But accepting meant going fully public. My identity would be everywhere. I'd become a public figure, with all the scrutiny that involved. I sat in my apartment, looking at the contract. Everything I'd worked for was coming together. I'd rebuilt my life. Proven myself. Won. But was winning enough. I thought about Patricia at that first dinner, gesturing dismissively toward the children's table. I thought about Adrian throwing my laptop. I thought about all the small cruelties, the quiet humiliations, the years of being made to feel small. I could destroy them completely now. I had the power, the money, the public support. One press release about everything they'd done to me would ruin what remained of their reputation. My phone was in my hand. The statement was already written. I looked at my reflection in the window. Then I deleted the statement. Instead of revenge, I chose something better. I announced the creation of the Horizon Foundation, a non-profit that would provide grants and mentorship to women who'd left their careers for marriage and wanted to rebuild. The press conference was packed. I stood at the podium, cameras flashing, and told my story honestly. Not for revenge, but to help others who might be going through the same thing. "I'm not special," I said. "I'm just someone who refused to stay broken. And if I can do it, so can you." The response was overwhelming. Within a week, we'd received 5,000 applications for grants. Women from every background, every industry, all with the same story. They'd set aside their dreams, and now they wanted them back. We funded 100 women in the first round. Teachers who wanted to finish their degrees. Engineers who'd left tech jobs. Artists who'd stopped painting. Each one received mentorship, seed funding, and a network of support. The story went viral. Major news outlets covered it. I was invited to speak at conferences, universities, corporate events. Torres Industries, now properly managed, became profitable within the year. And I finally felt like myself again. 6 months after everything, Adrian showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop him, but I told her to let him in. He looked different. Thinner, tired, humbler. "I just wanted to say something," he started, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. A lot of therapy, actually." He gave a sad laugh. "My therapist made me realize something. You were always the strong one. Capable one. I was just too insecure to see it. I didn't say anything. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me because I was afraid you'd realize you didn't need me." He looked at his feet. "You were right not to take me back. You deserve better than what I gave you." "Yes," I said quietly. "I did. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. For everything." I studied him for a moment. "Thank you for saying that. I hope you find whatever you're looking for." He nodded and turned to leave. The door he paused. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. I should have been proud of you all along." After he left, I sat alone in my office for a while. I felt sad for the time we'd wasted, but I didn't regret leaving. The annual Business Leadership Gala was the social event of the year. Last time I'd attended, I'd been Adrian's wife, invisible in a borrowed dress, ignored by everyone who mattered. This year I was the keynote speaker. I wore a midnight blue gown I'd bought myself. I arrived alone by choice. As I walked into the ballroom, conversations stopped. People turned to look. Not with pity or dismissal this time, but with respect. Patricia was there. She stood near the bar with a few other people from her social circle. Our eyes met across the room. She gave me a small nod. Not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement. I nodded back. The MC introduced me. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, the founder and CEO of Horizon Solutions and owner of Torres Industries, Maya Rivers." The applause was thunderous. I walked to the stage, my head high. This was my moment. Not because I'd destroyed anyone, but because I'd rebuilt myself. I stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces. Business leaders, investors, entrepreneurs. People who once would have dismissed me without a second thought. 5 years ago, I began. I sat at a children's table because my in-laws thought I wasn't successful enough to sit with the adults. Tonight, I'm standing here as the owner of their company. I paused, letting that sink in. But this isn't a revenge story. It's a story about remembering who you are when everyone else has forgotten. I talked about the journey. The fear, the doubt. The nights I'd cried in that tiny apartment wondering if I'd made a terrible mistake. I talked about the small victories that led to bigger ones. About the women who'd helped me when I had nothing to offer in return. Success isn't about proving people wrong, I said. It's about proving yourself right. It's about knowing your worth even when no one else does. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted 2 minutes. People came up afterward wanting to talk, to connect, to share their own stories. Later that night, I sat alone in my car in the parking garage. The gala was over. The applause had faded. It was just me again. I pulled out my phone and looked at a photo from that first dinner, the night at the children's table. I looked so small in that picture, so defeated. I deleted the photo. Then I drove home to my beautiful apartment, poured a glass of wine, and sat by the window overlooking the city. My city now. My life now. My future now. And I smiled. Because I'd learned the most important lesson of all. The best revenge isn't destroying the people who hurt you. It's building a life so good that you forget they ever had the power to hurt you in the first place. I raised my glass to my reflection in the window. Here's to remembering where you came from, I whispered, and never letting it define where you're going.